歡迎各位觀眾收睇《周一長談》，我係你哋呢一集嘅節目主持人梁英年。喺呢集節目裏邊咧，係我哋好高興咧可以請到剛剛上任冇幾耐嘅加拿大聯邦國會下議院，或者我哋叫做 House of Commons 官式反對黨嘅黨領，亦都係加拿大保守黨嘅黨領 Pierre Poilievre。中文咧佢有一個嘅譯名嘅叫博勵治嘅。咁今日咧好高興咧可以請到嚟我哋嘅會客室同大家咧去傾下而家加拿大嘅時事政論係點樣樣。Welcome to the program, yeah.
Thank you.
So I just explained to our viewers, you have a Chinese name.
Oh, what is it?
During your leadership campaign,
Oh,
you
that's
have
right.
a Chinese
You have to
name,
remind me.
right? It's a 博勵治.
What does 博勵治 mean?
You have knowledge and
Yes.
you work hard and you want to govern Canada as the Prime Minister.
That's a beautiful name.
So you're going to provide good policy for Canada.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about those policy and what the present government is doing. I think the first and the most important thing people are thinking nowadays is the money in my pocket. It seems light.
It's evaporating.
Getting lighter and lighter, and I don't know where they are. And everything seems to be so expensive. It's almost we can't afford it.
Exactly.
Can you just explain to us why are we in this situation? And is the government doing right? The Bank of Canada doing right? Increase interest rate, and the Liberal government said we're giving out more money to Canadians to solve the problem. So on one hand, Trudeau government giving out more money. On the other hand, Bank of Canada say I have to raise interest rate so you don't spend that much. What is going on?
Well, look, the government can't give you any money without taking it away. Government has no money. Every dollar the government spends, it takes away from the people. It's not like Justin Trudeau is reaching into his own bank account to hand out these checks. He's either borrowing it, printing it, or taxing it. If he borrows it, it means more debt and higher interest rates for Canadians. If he taxes it, it means more payments by the Canadian people to the government. And if he prints it, then he's causing more inflation on the backs of consumers. So everything he gives, he takes away. The cost of government is driving up the cost of living. $500 billion of inflationary deficits have bid up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest we pay. Inflationary taxes, like the carbon tax, which Trudeau wants to triple, have driven up the cost of gas, heat, and groceries. The more Trudeau spends, the more things cost. It's just inflation. Now, what we need to do is cap government spending, cut waste, eliminate inflationary taxes like the carbon tax to lower the costs for farmers and truckers to deliver us the goods we need. And we need to remove the government bureaucracy that stands in the way of our farmers, businesses, and workers producing the goods we need more affordably. We need to stop creating cash and start creating more of what cash buys. Build more houses, grow more food, and produce more affordable Canadian energy for consumers.
Now, I think it's good you talk about the agricultural sector, because in BC, we import a lot of our daily vegetable, fruit from the US. And if we compare the price, if you go to a supermarket, go to a warehouse store, anything that comes from the US, it looks better, costs lower because of the government subsidy. And when you talk about the farmers, should we help the farmer by giving subsidy, just like what the US has done?
I don't think subsidies are the answer. I think reducing the costs that government imposes on farmers is the answer. We have, the government has hit our farmers with tariffs and taxes on fertilizer and fuel. That drives up the cost of production. And I'll give you an example. I have a tomato farm in my riding. They are in the greenhouse business. They have to pay carbon tax on the CO2 that they release into the greenhouse. Well, that CO2 is absorbed by the plant life, but it's still taxed by the government. And that drives up the cost of producing tomatoes. So it's more expensive to buy the local tomato in the local grocery store than it is to buy a Mexican tomato in our grocery stores. So ironically, the government's environmental policies are encouraging Canadians to buy tomatoes that have to be trained and trucked all across North America, burning fossil fuels, rather than buying the locally produced tomato that Canadians could grow right in our own greenhouses. So we need to reduce these costs and encourage our farmers to produce more food at lower prices so that our people can eat nutrition affordably.
Now, I remember in the House of Commons, you criticized the government of giving out too much money,
Yeah.
unbudgeted money. And the government said, which one you're going to stop the government from giving to Canadians? GST rebate, free dental, we are doing all these good things for Canadians, but you said, stop doing that. Is that right?
Well, throwing around other people's money is driving up inflation. Too much cash chasing too few goods equals too much inflation in the economy. Look, the numbers are clear. Government spending today is 30% higher than it was in 2019. In that time, the economy has only grown by 2.7%. So the government is growing 10 times faster than the economy. They've increased the money supply by $500 billion. So $1 in every $5 in the economy today was printed or made by government bankers in the last 2 years. That's why inflation is so high. You can spray money around in all directions. All it does is cause inflation, and people pay for it. So, you know, if I give you a check for $500, but then I increase your cost of living by $2,000, well, you're actually negative by $1,500. That's where Canadians are today. That's why 1 in 5 people are skipping meals because they can't afford food. 9 in 10 young people who don't afford a home believe they never will afford a home. It's why people are might actually freeze this winter because home heating is expected to double in price. That's the consequence of Justin Trudeau's spending and his money printing. It's just inflation, and it just needs to stop.
Yeah, the young people today may not just cut their food budget, but they can't even afford a house or a roof over their head. How are you going to help those young people? They're trying to get their first home or just try to get rental. Rent is going up every month in BC in particular. All
Yes.
the housing prices are so much more than before.
Yeah, home prices have doubled under Justin Trudeau. Under Justin Trudeau, we have the second worst housing bubble on planet Earth, according to Bloomberg. So it's not just a global problem, it's more of a Canadian problem. And there's 2 reasons. One, the government printed all this money, much of it went into the financial and mortgage system and got lent out to investors who bid up house prices. But 2, local government gatekeepers prevent construction. In Vancouver, the cost of government regulations and taxes for every unit of housing is $650,000. For one house, or one unit of housing, you're spending $650,000 on taxes and red tape. That's the cost just getting a permit, paying the development charges, all of that. That's municipal. However, the federal government gives a lot of money to municipalities. I'm going to be attaching a condition to it. I'm going to say that big cities that want, I'm going to tie the amount of federal money they get to the number of houses that they allow to be completed. So, you know, if Vancouver City Hall wants more federal money, they're going to have to allow more homes to be built, and quickly, by lowering the cost and increasing the speed of building permits. I'm also going to sell off 15% of the 37,000 federal buildings to convert those into housing. And I'm going to do a survey of all the federal lands that are not ecologically sensitive and sell off some of those lands so that they can be used to build housing as well. In other words, stop printing money, start building homes. That way our young people will have a place to live.
Now, on one hand, this is good to build more homes, but on the other hand, the federal government is planning to welcome how much? 500,000 new people every year for the next 3 years. So 1.5 million in the next 3 years. So it's people, when they come, they need to find somewhere to live.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you want more house so people in Canada can afford it. But we are welcoming so many new Canadians. How are you going to help those newcomers to find a place to live?
Well, we need a special stream of immigration that to accelerate immigration of tradespeople so that they can help build the houses. You know, I'll give you an example. I went to A1 Trusses. That they're a BC company. They build trusses that, you know, that support the roof and the ceiling of houses, which we need for every house. You need a truss. And the problem is they can't get workers. And so they could be building more trusses at lower prices, but they have no workers to help them assemble the 2x4s into the triangular trusses. So if they could have faster immigration for people who can pound those trusses into place, they could build more and we could have more houses. But the Liberal backlog in immigration means that employers have to wait 4 or 5 years to get people here to work in high-demand fields like home building. So what I want to do is have an employer-driven economic immigration system that allows those businesses that have a job that they can't fill with Canadians to quickly sponsor newcomers to come here and fill the job and serve our economy.
But do you agree with the target number? 500,000 a year. In Canada, most of our even provinces are less than 1 million people.
Yeah.
How can we have 1.5 million people in 3 years? Is it a number too high?
Well, the number, frankly, we shouldn't focus on arbitrary numerical targets, because what we should have instead is a system based on demand by employers for workers, by demand by families to reunite with loved ones, demand by charitable groups to sponsor refugees. When the economy is in demand of a large number of workers, that the employers should be able to bring more in. When the economy slows down, then there'll be fewer economic immigrants coming to fill jobs. So the numbers should fluctuate based on the demand that Canadians have, and the immigration levels should serve the national interest.
So the level of immigrants should be demand-driven, not central plan.
I don't believe in central planning. Central planning doesn't work for making widgets or making cars, and we saw that in the Soviet Union, right? What we need actually is a demand-driven system and an employer-driven system, right? Like the idea that the government in Ottawa can decide what skills the economy needs is total nonsense. They don't know. They can look at their reports and studies all day. What we really need is to have employers who take responsibility for sponsoring people to come here to fill jobs Canadians are not filling. And that will allow our immigration system to serve our economy.
Now, some critic of the immigration system said, if we have so many people come into Canada in such a short time, how can we make sure the value system of those people can fit into Canada so it won't create any conflict, like what we've been talking in the last few years of discrimination, racial prejudice, this kind of Canadian value?
Yeah, look, I don't know how you measure that. I think Canada is already a country of immigrants, and I think the values that immigrants have brought to Canada, family, faith, freedom, hard work, are the values that built Canada. So I'm not worried about the government deciding what values people should have. I think, frankly, people can choose their own values, and our experience is that immigrants have strong values in our country. My wife's an immigrant; she's a refugee. Her family has strong family values, hard work, self-reliance. My concern is not with that. My concern is more that the government is so incompetent that it can't process immigration. It can't connect immigration with our job market, and it can't get anything done.
So people come to Canada because of our hope and freedom that we can provide to all Canadians.
Yeah.
But recently, there's a number coming out from this municipal election. They said the public safety is the #1 concern of people living in big city.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, on average, 4 people got attacked by strangers every day. And how are we going to help those people to feel safe at home?
Yeah, the problem is that there's a very small number of repeat violent offenders who get back out on the street and again. We all believe that a young person who makes a mistake should get a second chance. But we're talking about the prolific offender, the one that does crimes day after day after day. So one stat that came out from the BC mayors in a recent letter was that in Vancouver, 40 people were responsible for 6,000 arrests. 40 people. So, I mean, do the math. It's like 150 arrests for each one of them. So that means some of these people, they do a crime, they get arrested, they get bail, and in the same day that they're released, they commit another crime. Those people should be given longer sentences and tougher bail conditions so that they can't just go out and terrorize the streets endlessly. That's what I would do. Trudeau's laws, Trudeau's policies have failed. We have 32% increase in violent crime under Justin Trudeau, 32%. Why? Because in one way is that he reformed the bail system to allow people to back out on the street again and again. My view is that if someone has committed many offenses and they get arrested again, they should not get bail. They should stay in prison until they go through trial. Second, though, we need to change the drug policy. Trudeau is legalizing hard drugs, and he's providing taxpayer-funded supply of those drugs that has perpetuated addictions in East Side Vancouver and other tent cities across Canada. My view is we should take that money and put it into recovery and treatment. So we take the people who are the addicts off the streets, give them a bed, give them detox and counseling to help them recover and get off drugs, get them into a job and start their lives over again, rather than giving them more and more free drugs. And finally, we need to bolster the border to keep drugs and guns out of our country and protect our population. And that's the three-part plan that a Poilievre government would bring to restore safety to our communities.
Sometimes we can circle a square, just like what the Trudeau government has been saying, ban handgun, ban all the legal guns. But we have illegal guns on the street.
Yeah.
We can see shooting every day in BC, particularly in a few major cities around BC. And for drug, we know it's a poison. But if Trudeau government say, we give you clean poison, so you won't kill yourself that quick. So that is the kind of policy people have been hearing. So how can we circle those squares?
Exactly.
So you're saying instead of giving free drugs, we should use those money to help people get away from drugs?
Yes.
That is simple.
It's very simple, and it's very obvious.
Sometimes it's simple thing we cannot solve. But now,
and it works. And by the way, it's not just a simple idea. It works in Alberta. They're doing that now. They put the money into recovery. So they've made it easy for addicts to go in and get treatment. They go in, they get medications that help them detox, they get counseling, they get 60 to 90 days programming that helps them restore their good habits and rebuild their lives, and then they're integrated back into society with jobs and opportunity. That is how we turn their lives around. Instead of leaving people on the street and giving them poisons is not the answer.
I know we don't have much time, but actually the last question is regarding the recent report by CSIS. They gave that report to the Trudeau government and few ministers regarding the hostility of China trying to do something regarding our democracy, our election system. Trudeau has been crying for a long time, oh, this is not good, this is not good. They're launching a war game in Canada, but his government is not doing anything to stop it.
Yeah.
So what will a conservative government do under Pierre Poilievre to do on this kind of foreign hostility?
Well, I've just pushed, my members of Parliament have pushed a study at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee to get to the bottom of these allegations. Trudeau knew in January that there were allegations of a foreign government interfering and even providing illegal financing in the 2019 election. We know that there are similar allegations about the 2021 election. We need to get all the facts on the table so Canadians know what level of interference occurred in our elections. Canadian elections should be determined by Canadian voters, not by a foreign government. And that's why I want a full investigation, and I want the Prime Minister to come clean about what he knew when he knew it and what he's doing to protect our democracy from these kinds of threats.
Now, I think it's important. We know the fact, and if they are true, so what will you do to stop that from happening again?
Well, we need stronger counterintelligence to identify these kinds of threats. We need to make sure that the election body thoroughly investigates any allegations of illegal financing like there were. We have laws that already ban foreign governments from donating money to political candidates. those laws should be enforced. And I'm curious why Election Canada hasn't done more to enforce them so far. We're going to look at other proposals that will protect us from this kind of interference and keep Canadian democracy clean.
因為時間關係咧，黨領咧就要趕住翻到 Ottawa。咁我哋呢位嘅官式反對黨黨領 Pierre Poilievre 咧，咁啊同大家講咗好多關於加拿大嘅議題。其實仲有好多議題咧，我係想同佢講嘅，但係因為時間關係冇辦法咧，係更加詳細嘅去了解每一個嘅細節。但係總括嚟講咧，而家加拿大人所面對嘅各種嘅困難，包括喺經濟上邊、通貨膨脹、住屋、我哋嘅生活、移民、安全，包括咗咧我哋個人喺加拿大生活嘅安全，同埋加拿大嘅國家安全咧，喺各方面咧，作為一個嘅反對黨嘅黨領，亦都會帶領佢個團隊咧係去 make sure 佢確實咧係執政嘅自由黨杜魯多政府咧係能夠喺各方面咧都係為加拿大人服務嘅。有陣時喺政治上邊咧係無分左中右，大家嗰個目的咧都係為加拿大人服務嘅。咁所以咧係希望各位觀眾咧係對加拿大嘅事務，如果有任何嘅意見嘅話，同你哋嘅國會議員傾，或者咧係寫個電郵、寫封信嚟農場頻道。周一長談，咁我哋咧係收到呢啲嘅意見咧，可以有更多嘅機會，下一次做訪問嘅時候咧，同佢更加詳細去講嘅。多謝各位嘅收睇。